G'day, Stu from UAVfutures, and today, something pretty special. Whoa! I don't know why I did that. Anyway, we're reviewing this. This is from Catalyst Machine Works. This is the Speed Addict 180R. Now, this is probably one of the most elite frames out there that money can buy. I've got mine. It came with the camera mount and as well as the PDB, so I've got that in sort of a kit. So we're going to pop this on the bench and see what makes this frame so special. Alright, let's check it out. So here's how it's going to turn up when you get it from the post. So we'll open it up and see what you get. Alright, so this is everything that came in the kit, and I don't know if this is me or if I just got lucky, but I got 5 of these rubberized Velcro straps, so that's fantastic. Speaking of the frame, we've got our bottom plate just here, a sort of top camera mount, and the FPV camera section just here. We have the top plate and also the bay covering. It comes with all these standoffs and a whole assortment of little washers and screws and bolts and covers and things like that, so it's great to have all these, and they're blue. I really love the colour of these ones. This just here is part of the bay covering, and that works with the PDB and flight controller. We'll talk about that, as well as your antenna mounts and antenna sort of holders just here. We've got a special PDB just here, which I can't wait to talk about. And I've also got this little Xiaomi Yi holder just here, which will be fantastic. I'll talk about this as well. Alright, so let's look at the main base plate first. I say main base plate because there's actually 2 parts just that make up this part. Anyway, this main part here, it's 180 millimeters from motor to motor, and an interesting thing to note, this frame is actually wider than it is long. So it's 150 millimeters long, and it's actually wider than that across the front. This 180R is specifically designed to have some 1806 size motors, so I've got some just here, and these are going to be amazing because they're 2700 kV, and I think you can see it offers a perfect amount of protection but still keeps the weight down, because a big thing this frame's got going for it is how heavy it all adds up to be. It's actually a really light frame. Now, this frame is specifically designed for 1806 motors, so they're going to fit perfectly on here and still offer a little bit of protection on the motors just here, and the carbon will protect it in a crash. You can see here how it's tapered down towards the back, and everything in this frame is geared toward racing and getting the best, fastest lap times that you can. So the aerodynamics of this frame, because it's an X configuration, it's going to handle fantastically compared to its sort of H brothers. And you can see here at the back, it's sort of tapered down, and that's going to allow for some reduced drag as it's pumping through the air. So everything on here is shaped towards speed. Now, it is one solid piece, so you're not attaching any arms or anything like that on here, and that helps keep the weight down. The whole plate itself, it's 3 millimeters thick, so fairly strong carbon. Not the thickest that I've seen, but definitely keeping the weight down at just 3 millimeters. Something really interesting about this frame is this section just here, this sort of cutout, and this plays a really important role in the center of gravity, and we'll talk a lot about that when we get towards sort of putting the frame together and having a look at it. But essentially, this little cutout here is going to let you put the PDB and the flight controller stacked in on top of this and below it a little bit, and it's really going to allow you to sit your battery down and sort of have a lower top deck. Alright, so let's get on to the next bit. Alright, now this is the part that hangs underneath this main plate just here, and this is sort of the bay covering, and this will cover your PDB, because your PDB is going to sit in here, and then this is going to be on top of it. And that's important for a few reasons, because it's going to allow you to eventually mount your battery a lot lower than traditional frames. This part just here, this sort of plastic printed housing, it's the perfect size to fit in your PDB, so it's going to fit there nice and snug, and that's going to be attached just here to this bottom carbon plate, and this bottom carbon plate I think is 1.5 millimeters, 1.4 millimeters thick. Alright, so now let's talk about the top of the frame. Now, I've got this broken down into 2 parts. So I've got the camera side just here, and that's going to talk about our FPV camera and things like that. And then we've also got the top plate. This is where the battery and things will be housed. Now, this is very different to most traditional frames, because usually this is all one top plate sort of joined together, but that's not how the 180R is designed. So this top plate just here, this is where your battery is going to sit, and you can see you've got some battery strap slits just here. It's got this great little cutout here for an XT60 sort of holder that'll come up just there and slide in the side. And keeping again with that very aerodynamic sort of profile just here, you can see it's tapered very thin down here towards the back, and that's to reduce the amount of drag when you're racing through the air. The whole thing is 1.5 millimeters thick. And of course, it's got your little standard antenna mount just here, so you can mount your antenna so that's not going to snap off just there. And also, it looks awesome. I think this is one of the best looking frames just here, sort of on how it looks, that sort of sleek, cutting edge looking design. Alright, let's talk about the camera housing. Now this part is very important because we've got some different ways of thinking about how to mount our camera to our FPV frame. So just here we've got the top section of the mount, and this is extremely strong, and this is 2.9 millimeters thick. So some really thick carbon there, very strong for a top plate, and that's made so when it's in a crash you're going to really protect your FPV camera in there, so very strong, especially when combined in the little box that it builds with the bottom plate. And then it's got some interesting sliding mechanisms just here on the side, and this is where you're going to mount your FPV camera. Now the FPV camera actually mounts specifically into this little printed plastic part just here. It's going to mount inside, and that's going to allow you to change the angle of the camera when you're out in the field, so you don't need to muck around too much to be able to change your angle. I'll show you how that looks in some other cuts as well. Alright, so now something I'm really excited to talk about, and this is the PDB, and this is an optional extra you can order when you're ordering your frame, and this is specifically designed for the 180 and the 210R. You've got a heap of copper in here, so it's going to be highly conductive. It's going to be fantastic. You can see just here across the front, you've got a whole bunch of filtered power. So you've got some spots for your camera, and that's all going to be filtered. And then so once your camera can go just in here, here's your VTX options out just here, as well as some OSD options, and all of that is filtered. You've got a whole bunch of little bridging things just here, so you can choose exactly what you want to run out as your voltage and things like that. So it can be 5 volts, 12 volts, a whole bunch of different options depending on how you want to wire this up. I think it's got some really clever design, so anything coming out 12 volts is on this side and 5 volts is on this side, and they've both got the common ground in the middle, so it's what makes wiring things really, really easy. Of course it fits in with the 36 by 36, the standard sort of nose size holes, and that's going to fit great when it's inside our frame. 12 volt step down and your 5 volt step down just there. Now this thing can accept 3 to 6S, but 4S is the recommended spec to run when you're building this frame and this PDB. But yeah, my favourite thing is probably how all these front things across here are filtered, so it's going to reduce a whole lot of noise in your FPV video feed, so I can't wait to test that out. Alright, next we're going to talk about our receiver antenna mount. Now this is pretty special because I haven't seen this before. This is a special mount designed specifically for your receiver antennas, and the great thing is it mounts just on the back of the frame. So it mounts just here on the back of the frame, but something that's great about this, it still gives you room to put your VTX antenna out, but it's also flexible, so it's not going to snap in a hard crash, it's just going to bend, and the plan is it'll be able to just get back up and you'll be able to keep flying. And of course, because most of us run diversity receivers just here, you can see that it has a great 45-degree angle spread just here, and that's going to allow you to get the best reception no matter which angle your frame is flying at. And it's also tilted on an angle as when you're flying away at a high speed, based on the pitch, I guess, that you're flying, these are going to be poking up directly vertically, so you're probably going to get the best reception from your radio when you're going forwards. Alright, now we're getting down to the nitty gritty parts that come with the kit. So let's talk about these battery straps that are included. Now I got 5, I don't know if that's standard, but it's definitely awesome. And I love the feel of these things because they're definitely going to hold a battery in place, or a GoPro or something like that, because the rubber on the back of here is extremely grippy, so that's great. We'll have to see how these hold up in crashes though, but they seem fairly strong. Of course you get some little things like pin headers and stuff like that, and that's going to come in handy when we're wiring in our PDB and our nays and stuff like that. You get a whole bunch of screws and things just here. I love how they come in blue. So I haven't seen blue before, but I think it's definitely going to give this frame a bit of flair, and keeping with the color scheme of the things. You've got some plastic standoffs in here. You've got a XT60 sort of rubber mount, or a little battery sort of grommet thing that's going to hold your battery leads in place. You got your washers, nuts and bolts, a whole bunch of things in here, everything you need to build the frame, and it looks like they give you a few spares as well. And you also get some of these. Now these standoffs actually are pretty spectacular. They're a standard width in the middle of 5 mils thick. Well, it says 5.2, so 5 mils thick, but something that's really impressive, when you go up at the end where the most stress is going to be, they are a 6mm standoff. Alright, and the final thing my kit came with, now this is another optional extra, just like the PDB. This is my HD camera mount, and this allows my little, I got this, it's pretty new actually. This allows your camera just to mount in here. I'm not going to put this on my race frame because this is definitely going to be, this frame is all built around speed, so that's why they've included this as an optional extra. But it gives you a great angle when you're flying, so it's already pre-tilted, and something that I love about it, it's made out of this sort of soft bendy plastic as well, so in a crash it's not going to snap, it's just going to flex and bend, and then hopefully survive, and you'll be able to keep on flying. Alright, so let's put this frame together and see what it looks like when it's made up. So this is the frame all made up, and I gotta say, it looks sick. I love the sort of cut deck down here, so the lowered profile of the thing. Now when it's all shrunk down like this, you can really see down here in the bottom section exactly how it's sunk down in the bottom of the frame. And something I never thought of, but actually since looking at it and building it, it's actually a great little spot to land on as well. So your PDB will sit in there, and that's where your wires will run to, and then your flight controller is going to sit on top of all these standoffs. And it's great how they included all these things in the kit as well. Just here you can see the XT60 that's going to be running out of here from the PDB, and that's going to allow your battery to sit on the top nice and snug. Now this is probably the biggest feature of this race frame, is exactly how it holds the battery. So it's made for a 4S battery between 1000 and 1300 milliamp hours. Now, any battery on a quadcopter is a considerable amount of weight, and this frame is all about going fast and handling well. So by putting it in the middle here, it's going to allow it to turn and be an extremely agile craft, especially when you're doing those sharp hairpins and things. And a great thing too, because the arms are so short, these spans right here, it's going to bring all the mass that you have to, when you're turning really quick, all that is as close as it can to that center of gravity. So it's going to allow you to do some really sharp turns, and hopefully it should be able to turn on a dime. And I've got to say, when I was putting this together, it went together flawlessly. So it came with quite a few nuts and bolts and things like that, but it is machined extremely well and extremely clean. There's no offcuts or no rough bits or anything like that. So it's kind of what I'd expect from a premium frame, and that's definitely what this is, an elite premium racer. Alright, so let's weigh the thing, and it's coming in at 100 grams, so an extremely light and agile racer, so I can't wait to see how this thing goes and put it through its paces. Let's build the thing. So here's the thing all built and flying around, and it's worth noting that I'm flying with my action camera on here, so it's a little bit heavier than it should be. But I was actually amazed at how much difference this made with the battery closer to the middle of the frame. It flew fantastically, and I found hairpins to be especially quick. And I know I'm no pro pilot, so this is just some pretty boring chase footage, but it was great just to get a feel of the quad, and this is its maiden sort of flight anyway. But overall, I'm extremely happy with how this thing feels in the air. Alright, now let's talk about some little improvements, in my opinion, that we could do to make this frame even better. For starters, just here we've got the word speed sort of cut into the carbon. Now, I'm all for looks and things like that, but because this is performance focused, I would much prefer just two little slits down here that could be maybe used to Velcro or zip tie in some of your components, like your D4R2 or something like that. You can't really see that because that motor's in the way. But if there were two little slits here rather than the words, that'd be much more useful if you were going to Velcro or zip tie something down. Another thing too, once the battery's in here and it's all hooked up and ready to go, there is actually, because of this way the carbon's cut and where the arms are, there is actually an extremely close distance between the props and the battery. Now normally too much I don't mind about how close it can be to the frame or things like that, but when it's on the battery, in races and crashes, the battery can actually slide around a little bit, even the smallest bit, and you don't want your prop cutting up your battery. So my recommendation would be just instead of a 180 racer, maybe if it could be a 185 racer, because that extra 2 or 3 mils is going to make all the difference in the world to some batteries. Now look, these are just the ones I'm using, but it was definitely close on the back just here. When it came to actually building the kit, I wish they included just 1 or 2 spares of some of the longer bolts, because if you lose one of them, it's going to be a pain to replace. And also the other thing, in just here where these standoffs are, I actually had to use some different standoffs that came with my kit to mount my nays, and I used some shorter ones, and that enabled me to put my VTX directly on top of that sort of stack just there, making for an extremely clean, nice build. The ones that came with it meant the nays would have been even taller, and I would have had to sort of twist my pigtail around the back to mount my VTX back here. So because it's such a crammed frame in here, let's make sure we're using some smaller standoffs, or at least give us the option. They only cost a few cents, so send us some extra standoffs as well in the kit. Definitely would be an improvement. Alright, so overall this is an amazing frame that is purely focused just on racing. So if you are dead serious about your racing, this is definitely the frame for you. It's low profile just here and great center of gravity and reduced mass, so everything's focused on the center. Makes it extremely nimble and agile. Now, I absolutely love this little camera mount here. This is probably my favorite camera mount of the HS117 so far. It's so simple to set up and it holds it so snugly as well. So definitely can recommend this sort of camera setup. Well done, Catalyst Machine Works. And you can tell this frame everything is focused on performance. I mean, look at the front of this frame, exactly where your camera mount can be. This is going to be an extreme angle if you want to push your camera up there. So just designed for these speed freaks in mind. I guess that's why it's called the Speed Addict. I love the shape, I love the color, and most of all, I loved its flight characteristics when I was flying around. So an absolutely awesome quad to fly. So that's it, that's my review of the Speed Addict 1080R. Absolutely love this little guy and definitely a frame to check out if you're very serious about racing. For more FPV content, subscribe, and as always, happy flying! I'd really like to say thanks to everybody who's been supporting the channel. You guys have been really supportive and fantastic, and I've gotten so much positive feedback. So thanks for all the likes and shares and things like that. I couldn't be where I am today without all you guys' help, so thanks so much. Alright, happy flying!